Hi there, it's Nicole here today for Simon Says Stamp, and I'm sharing a couple of cards that showcase embossing paste and stencils two ways. On one of them, I've colored the embossing paste, the card on the left, and then used colored embossing paste through this circular lace stencil. And on the other, I colored the background and applied the stencil with white embossing paste over the color. So both really pretty easy techniques, and they create stunning, beautiful cards. This circular lace stencil is from the new Cherished release from Simon Says Stamp. That's what I'll be using today. The first card I'm going to share is coloring the background with distress inks and applying the stencil and the embossing paste over a colored background. I am using picked raspberry, squeezed lemonade, spiced marmalade, and wilted violet distress inks. Spritzing that with a little water, that's going to kind of help the little different areas of color kind of blend together better, I think. And then blot that dry with a paper towel. I've got my stencil here. I'm just laying it in place. It's kind of halfway over the background. And then I am applying the white embossing paste through the stencil. I didn't mask off the edges or anything, but you definitely could if you really want to make sure that none of that embossing paste gets on those like upper corners or whatever. Pretty thin layer of embossing paste. I like to scrape it thin with the side of the palette knife. Work that into all the creases, pick that up, and there is that beautiful circular lace background over the bright colors. So you could create this with any different color combination you like in the background, even a solid color, an ombre effect with maybe all blues or all pinks or something like that. Lots of different ways to create that. For my next one, I thought I might mask it off, but I decided not to. I am going to press those same ink colors, picked raspberry, spice marmalade, squeezed lemonade, and wilted violet onto my craft sheet. Take some of the embossing paste, blend it into that color. So the craft mat here is kind of serving as my palette. And then I'm just going to work each of these colors into the different areas of the stencil. What I love is there will be some overlap, and that is okay. What is great is whatever you've pressed into the design originally, you can generally scrape kind of what's on top of that off. So if you accidentally overlap a bunch of purple over yellow, and the yellow is already down, you shouldn't have much trouble. But I think the beauty of this particular technique is that the colors blend together so pretty. When you lift this up, you're going to see how gorgeous those colors look all blended together. You don't want a huge difference in between each of the colors. So I'm simply just picking up all this color, kind of spreading it all around. You want to make sure everything is covered so you get that great circular lace design. This plastic palette knife is fantastic. I like it because it has kind of a nice little small tip, perfect for moving ink into some small areas. And I'm just going to keep using what I have on my craft mat. I do think I had to pick up just a tiny bit more color. I ran out. Better to run out than have too much. Kind of scrape that all. Go ahead and lift that up, and you can see that awesome color there in the background. Now what I decided to do was I wanted to do something up near the top edges. So I'm just going to carefully put the stencil back down. Then I'm just going to take my white embossing paste up here near the top and kind of work it around the edges. And what I found was as I was using the white, it kind of blended over what I had already done with the color, muting it just a little bit more, which I actually liked. So I went ahead and went over the whole thing with some white. Then I'll pop that up, and it's really softened the whole effect. So beautiful. When you're using embossing paste and stencils, I highly recommend going and cleaning those off with some hot water right away. Otherwise, you will have some trouble getting that off. Now it's just time to do some finishing details, add some greetings and some embellishment, and these cards are going to be done. I am using this On the Edge thank you die from Simon Says Stamp. I'm going to die cut it from white for one of the cards and black for the other. The card that has more colorful in the background, the first background I did, that's going to have the white thank you. And the card with more of a white background with the colored embossing paste is going to have the black thank you. And that's simply because you can see the white doesn't show up very good, I don't think, on the first card that I was showing there. Then I'm just going to alternate my greetings. One of the greetings will be stamped on black and embossed with white. The other one will be stamped with black ink on a white strip. These are just scraps of cardstock that I have here, and I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Stripe Greetings. This is from a previous release that was released quite a while ago. I love mixing and matching stamps and dies that may be brand new or older with something that is new, like this circular lace stencil. I love shopping my supplies and finding things that work together. So here is the greeting that I'm going to be using underneath the thank you, stamped with Versamark ink and embossed with white embossing powder on black cardstock. It reads, "You might be my favorite person." So the greeting will be, "Thank you. You might be my favorite person." I think that's kind of a fun greeting. Once I have the sentiments stamped, I am going to trim these into thin strips. So just barely above and below the stamped sentiment. And that is going to fit perfectly here then underneath the thank you. My backgrounds are trimmed down just a tiny bit. So they are 4 inches by 5¼ inches. That's going to leave an 1/8 of an inch border all the way around on all 4 sides. I'll put a little adhesive right below the On the Edge thank you. Center the stamped greeting and just adhere that right over the top. I just want it to make sure that it's centered, since I'm doing this in a vertical style. If I was going to do this horizontal, I could leave quite a bit more room to play and do it a little bit different. But as is, it's going to fit perfectly along the bottom here. I'm going to adhere it maybe about 1 inch up from the bottom. So here is the first one, and once I have that where I want it to go, I'm just going to flip it over and snip off any of that excess. I think that's maybe not quite even, so I'm going to fix that real quick. And there's what it looks like, a perfect, beautiful background. Now all I'm going to do is take a top fold card base. These are pre-made card bases from Simon Says Stamp. I just love them. I love having them on hand, all ready to go. They already are pre-scored, so you can just fold them in half and just go ahead and make sure they're creased well with the bone folder. I'm adhering that panel right to the card base, and this is beautiful as is, but I thought it would be fun to take some Nouveau Crystal drops in the same colors or similar colors that I used for the Distress Ink background, and just add some of my own enamel dots all over. I am addicted to these because it's so fantastic to be able to create your own enamel dots in any size you want. Plus, these come in tons of colors. You can use them in other ways as well. So they're just a super versatile product that I really have been enjoying. And they add a great simple embellishment. They're not going to have a ton of dimension or anything like that, so they will be fantastic for mailing. Do make sure when you use these that you can allow the card 24 hours or so to sit and completely dry before you try to mail it. Otherwise, you might be disappointed because they might not hold up very well and flatten a little bit. But if you let them sit for plenty of time, you should not have any trouble with them. So there is the first card with the Nouveau Crystal drops. Just kind of decorating the background. The white is very subtle over the color. It almost picks up some of the color so that it's more of a texture rather than a design over the top, if that makes sense. For the second card, like I said, I'm going to just do the opposite of what I did the first time. with a black die cut greeting, and this time my greeting will be stamped on white cardstock with black ink, again trimmed into a thin strip, adhered over that, adhered along the bottom, and then Nouveau crystal drops added. Thanks for joining me today for these 2 cards featuring embossing paste and stencils 2 ways. The supplies I used are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring Simon Says stamps and dies that you might be interested in. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.